Welcome, everybody, to Hey Huzi. Today, we're going to be discussing AI in healthcare, medicine's digital revolution. Here's what nobody's saying out loud: that pain you're ignoring, that weird symptom that you Googled at 2 a.m. Right now, there's an AI that could tell you if it's nothing or if it can kill you in the next 5 years. We don't actually know. The gap between these two outcomes is shrinking to absolutely zero. So, welcome, Eric. We're so excited to have somebody that is in this space and can have a phenomenal overall extensive knowledge base when it comes to technology and artificial intelligence. And if you haven't been on the pod, thank you so much for jumping in. Welcome. We're going to be talking about a lot of cool things today. Eric, how are you doing today? And are you excited to talk about this?
Good morning. No, I hate talking. Yes, of course, man. So one of the biggest challenges we have today is our healthcare system, our medical system, the insurance system, the technology, the cost of it, the weight of it, the access to
Yep.
equal care for everybody. So what an important topic. I hope we do it justice, and most importantly, at the end of the day, this is now a pivot in society where I think consumers are going to have more and more choices, which we should talk about why that's super important. So yeah, I'm excited to be here, buddy. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah. I think you're 100% right. I think we've all heard that AI can read images. They can, look at medical history and give you some form of diagnostic or at least an idea of one. But help me understand what's actually happening under the hood that makes it effective. Like what is the tech? What is AI actually doing? Is it just scanning anecdotal data and research papers and collectively putting it all together, or what?
Bro, like this is why I'm excited about this is because we've been able to free up people that have like some sort of interest in a topic, and before it would take them a year, let's say, to get through the research and get through the data and get to the point of the whole thing, and now they can do it in a month or so. So we're speeding up the iteration of finding causes, finding roots of diseases, finding cures, finding possible protocols for delivering care. And so the speed, I think, of which we improve our medicines, our care is going to just exponentially take over. I'm going to give you one example, actually, like in the field.
Please.
There's a company I'm an investor in, just to be full disclosure, called Rapirio. And Rapirio essentially wanted to challenge the cost of people just getting the annual sort of care. It like, especially people in like rural areas or whatnot, it takes them a while to drive in to get to a hospital, do this care. It's expensive, and when people avoid it. And so he's like, well, can we bring that to their doorstep? Can we essentially bring an annual sort of doctor visit to somebody's doorstep? And how easy could we make it? Could they just, administer it essentially, on these devices that come in this kit and connect to your phone, and then it would take all the data and then send it to your healthcare provider and send it to your insurance provider. And so this company is really taking off because they lowered the barrier to care, and then the AI powered nature comes in, because then when the nurse practitioners are doing the follow-up telehealth visit with the patient, there's a live AI co-pilot that is ingesting the results, ingesting all of the medical records for that particular patient, listening into the conversation as the nurse practitioner and the patient are discussing, and then serving up things to nurse practitioner to talk about, to research, to note, live with the patient. So it's making these nurse practitioners like superhuman in real time, because they would have no ability to prep for a call like that, right? In this way, with this depth of service. So this patient isn't getting a telehealth nurse practitioner that's just getting AI answers. This is a wildly more comprehensive view into this discussion than they were able to have, a year or two ago. So there's a real world practical application of AI supercharging, the care delivered to a patient, not just the better care, but lowering the expense dramatically at the same exact time and increasing the convenience of it all at the same time. So it's a three bang, shot, home run for sure.
That's insane. So take someone that like a nurse practitioner who has years and years of experience and has that the empathy to be able to understand what's going on, and then has the power of artificial intelligence to essentially exponentially increase their capacity of not understanding, but because what's that thing? We forget more than we actually know. So most people don't need to learn things. They need to be reminded. And so, imagine the amount of education that they went through to be able to serve something like that instantly. And I mean, what would you say the accuracy is? Because it's not like Googling something, right? Especially if you're thoughtful in how you're asking these questions.
I used to live next door to one of the presidents at WebMD. Okay. And so, it
Oh,
was
that's
really
funny.
fun I'd see him out in the driveway in the
WebMD.
morning. I'm like, hey man, logged into your site this morning. It looks like I only have like 10 minutes to live, because I had this bump on my skin, but it says I might have, brain aneurysm or something. Yeah, it was it was super fun just to give him a hard time. And he was like, yeah, I know. And I'm not picking on WebMD on any sort, but we all know that joke, about
Yeah,
you
yeah,
log in,
yeah,
you Google your symptom and you think you're going to die in 10 minutes. So yeah, the difference between searching for something and having a conversation with an AI about something are two different things. There's no
yeah.
middleman when you have an AI interface between you and the information that you then have to sort on your own and find, right? The search part of it is dissolved completely. So let's also talk about the importance of the human in the loop. So I'm not sitting here and saying that AI needs to replace doctors, but I am saying that AI needs to augment all doctors. What the doctor should be good about is understanding that the AI should be doing all the drudgery, all the research, all the note taking, all of the live note taking as an example, all of the extraction of the medical records and research and bringing it up and serving it for the doctor, all the stuff that people used to have to do. And so we should absolutely be offloading that, but not offloading the wisdom, the care, the human nature, of the person. Let's talk about efficiency for a second in the healthcare world. Like we absolutely need a more efficient healthcare system, but we also need a more human one, more where they see the parents as not as the patients not as a patient, but as a person. And if we have these heart-led doctors and heart-led nurses that are AI augmented, they could get back to the human part of the business and get out of just being this clinical check a box and I have 15 minutes to talk to you and I got to rush off to the next one and submit all this insurance paperwork, and they're overwhelmed with the bureaucracy of it and underwhelming the human part of it. So I want us to make that transition. I think we should talk about some very specific examples. Actually, I'll give a personal example if you want.
Yeah, please. I'd love it.
Okay. You know that I had that event a couple of years ago where I pushed myself at an event, okay, too far,
Yep.
and I ended up in the hospital for 8 days, the intensive care. And that I almost didn't make it out of this thing. And what I want, when I'm going to tell this story, there is a process and efficiency to the system that doesn't necessarily deviate in the right ways because it's maximized for efficiency and process. It's not maximized for the individual nuance of individual patients at times. And when I was laying there and I had liver failure, heart failure, kidney failure, I was dissolving into the ether multiple times. They had to bring me back 9 times. It wasn't the machines and just the medicine that saved me. What saved me, honestly, at one point in time was the chaplain that they had called in that was sitting there, and her like piercing blue eyes staring at me, locked in, staring at me, is what kept me there. Even though the machines were whirring and the system was doing its thing and all that kind of stuff, I was dissolving until I had this human being holding my hand with her wrinkled leathered face, this woman with this gray, hair and these piercing blue eyes, and that anchored me there. The human connection, that heart to heart connection, the eyes locked in on each other, is what kept me there. And yes, I'm sure that the medicine helped. I'm sure the process, but I'm telling you, like it wasn't the system. It was that human something. I don't know what you say it. What you say that is. That's tether. That is so important. That grounded me to the process. And so the system can be wildly efficient, but if it's lacking that human connection, it's still not delivering what I think is expert level care. So I want to lean all the way in the humanity, and we can only lean all that when we have AI doing the drudgery part of the work.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's a personal story, and it's wild just hearing the abbreviated version of it. The doctor-patient relationship, the human element, I just can't see it ever being replaced. And that's like the perfect example. But where I see AI really shining is perhaps in personalized medicine and the treatment of prescribing the medication. I can't tell you how many times I've been prescribed a medication that for off-label use, and I won't get into specifics, to help treat a specific problem, and it ended up causing a myriad of issues. Maybe having AI intervene and being able to decipher data and symptoms and history of the patient on a scale that far supersedes one specific individual, a pharmacist, a doctor, whatever. That's where I see it really shining. Do you agree, disagree?
I could not agree more, actually. So, and I have doctor friends that I think are like smart and capable and experienced wildly. And yet with today's models, I would say that, a brand new, I'm just going to use a generic, like the brand new Gemini 3 or the brand new Claude 4.5 Opus or 5.1 from ChatGPT, like the very highest available models today aren't hungover sometimes when they go to work. They didn't just have a fight with their wife before they showed up for work.
Yep.
They didn't do back-to-back long shifts and are tired. They didn't just have 3 horrible patient meetings with somebody and now they're ultimately stressed and affected by the previous consults before they sit down in front of me. They don't have those human fallibilities inside of it that I think we should 100% leverage. Then the human side of it is the thing that like doctors have to get retrained on how to do, and nurses get trained on how to do. Now, I've had some amazing doctors and amazing nurses. However, if I were to challenge any doctor today and I say, here's my medical chart, you have 1 hour to prepare for my meeting, and I give all of the same charts to an AI and I give it 2 minutes, I'm going to say that the AI doctor would probably be better prepared and have more knowledge about me than the doctor that had an hour to review all of my charts. And that is theory, but I also can say this because Jenny, the mother of my children, had breast cancer recently. Okay. And going to the doctor, she was given a certain prescription and a certain diagnosis and a certain, regimen. And I took basically 10 years worth of data from across the globe and all these different research papers and all these different medical trials. And I was able to cross-reference demographics, age, sex, type, the scans and all that stuff. And I was able to use an AI system, presented that back to the doctor with what I found, and it transformed her care that they were going to give her.
It's remarkable.
Okay. So I'm also not sitting here like theorizing. Like I actually used Huzi the AI system to ingest this amount of data that none of them could. They were operating based on what they thought was standard best care. By the way, standard best care for the medical industry is heavily weighted in a certain direction, not for care, but for liability's sake, by the way. Mm-hmm. Right? Insurance, legal, and liability's sake. It's not a personalized sort of like approach. There's a standard best care because that's how they found they get less sued, right? And it's a weighted average. But her body type and her size and the size of the tumors and all those sorts of things were particular to her. Standard best care is not particular in that way. So I was able to heavily influence the prescription, the plan, and everything as a result of being highly augmented by AI. And by the way, she's doing great, right? And she's through it, surgeries and totally cancer free, and the impact on her body was a lot less because the drugs they were going to give her and the care we were going to give her were a lot less than what they're planning on doing. So I really am talking. I didn't even know we were going to talk about this today, but sitting here, I have all these very personal dogs in the fight where I have just seen bad care given to lots of different people. And I think we can improve that.
I'm very thankful for sharing. I'm sure everybody listening, these are the stories that will resonate, will connect with, because these are real world situations that you personally experienced and went through. I'm curious, I do have a follow up. The response to the doctor that was in charge of your wife's care, when you brought him or her this information, were they receptive to this, or there was a resistance in the very beginning?
Well, first of all, I'm a pretty good salesperson. So
I know you are.
yeah. So of course, and let's say also they were great people. They were great human beings at the core of this too. So
That's fantastic.
they weren't there trying to be right. They were there trying to do the right thing. And unfortunately, they're in a system that doesn't necessarily allow them to that. And that means not just the system is rigged against them. That means even the time frames they have to care for each patient and all those sorts of things don't just allow for the type of, like, I was willing to stay up for night and night and night and do this research, and they have lots of other patients, and I only had one in this case. So, and I think that that's an important thing also to say. I say this often, that nobody else in this world cares more about you and your family's health than you should, more about your finances, more about your pet, than you do. Like, the vet might love your dog, but you love your dog more. Right. And so just to hand off, and give up your agency with these things are very, very important just to somebody else because they have a PhD does not make any sense to me at all.
Right.
So playing a part in it, I do think is important. So I want to say that. But, at the same time, you ask a good question that is not just happening in the medical industry, but it's every knowledge-based service industry. This is happening in legal too. Lawyers are getting double-checked by their clients with ChatGPT. Real estate agents, mortgage professional, financial services, any sort of knowledge, that's given by an expert to a customer. Now, most people are going back to their AI of choice, Huzi, Gemini, whatever, and double-checking the work or asking questions that they're not asking the professional. So doctors are getting used to this. And my doctor the other day, I was talking to my naturopath, and he was like, yeah, man, it's pretty common that after I give lab results and we have a discussion, then I get an email from my client and I can tell it's a copy and paste from ChatGPT with a list of questions and other thoughts and ideas. And so I think they're really needing to get used to that, by the way.
Yeah.
But if they were offended, I don't give a shit, because I'm not there to make friends with them. I'm there to get this right. I'm there to get my diagnosis right or my family's diagnosis right or whatever. So, and if they are offended, then get a new fucking doctor, get new care. And why would you just sit there and have somebody with a big ego that's not willing to listen to something you have a genuine concern for boss you around? No, that's not a part of what should happen. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And I'm glad that you mentioned a naturopath. I can't tell you how many people that I know that are so good at what they do, yet it is not their profession. They don't have a traditional education that mirrors their expertise, which, is unfortunate that you have to have a little signed piece of paper or whatever, especially for like research purposes, a PhD versus an MD. Anyways, what I'm leading to is telemedicine really exploded during COVID. And now more than ever, we're dealing with, these weight loss clinics or medical spas that also carry weight loss medications like the GLP-1, GLP-3, GLP-4 agonists, what have you. Mm-hmm. And what I've noticed is a good majority of them, at least the ones that I've spoken with, communicated with, is that they're not getting blood work. They're not seeing their health markers. They're not looking at their history medically. They're not looking at what they've experienced, their medical charts in terms of what medications they've been on, what they're currently taking. None of that stuff. They're just like, oh, well, we'll put you on this dose, and if it doesn't work, we'll raise it. If it doesn't work, we'll switch you on to this other GLP. It's just like, wow, it blows my mind. If you really leverage AI, potentially, maybe this could at least alleviate that pinpoint. Because if you're not doing this stuff already, at least maybe having the adjunct help of an AI at your disposal could be beneficial to your patient, because you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing anyway, but at least take that initial step to scan all of their past medical history and get an idea.
AI is also fallible. It can hallucinate, especially if you don't know how to use it and query it. If the developer for the system didn't know how to provide guardrails and cite the source and all those sorts of things. And so, there's a certain level of discernment here. When you get results from your doctor and they're telling you something, you should use your own discernment. If you're getting results from an AI and it's telling you something, you should use your own discernment. So, with that said, the government, because we're talking about naturopaths here for a second.
Right. Yep.
when we talk about what's covered and what's not, and we talk about the difference of cost in this country versus the cost for things in other countries, we talk about cost of surgeries. I see the medical bills come through, and it's an insane cost. We also have to figure out how to get the fucking government out of some of these things because,
Yeah.
have you ever had LASIK surgery, by the way? Okay. Well, it's not covered. You can get that.
Right.
It's a pretty major surgery. We can get that for $1,000 or $1,500. You can get that at that cost because the government never tried to make it safe and affordable, and accessible. And so it is safe, affordable, and accessible because the government didn't try and do that. That's not something that they intervened in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is safe, affordable, but try and go get an MRI and see how
Oh,
affordable
God.
that is.
I'm still trying to get an MRI right now.
Okay. Because the
Like,
government didn't try to make it say
yep.
that they tried to make MRIs, accessible and affordable. Okay. So there are multiple layers. I'm not trying to just blame the healthcare system or blame doctors
Totally.
in some way. And so with that said, now let's talk about something that the government is doing. And what is the project? Gosh dang it. I told you the other day, Project
Oh my
Atlas.
gosh. I remember. I can't remember the name though. It
Oh
was
my
on our
God.
last podcast.
I am so sorry. I'm just blanking on the name today, but the government just launched a whole, program, Manhattan style product where they're basically, running AI on top of all of their different science and research and medical and medicine. And so we'll see what happens as a result of that. But
Genesis? Is it
Genesis,
Genesis?
there you go. Yeah, there you go. It's Project Genesis. And yeah, thank you. Oh, you're quick on the search. I don't have something up on my screen today. But yeah, Project Genesis. So we'll see what happens there when the government adds the most powerful AI in the world to medical research, science research, biomedical,
Yeah.
pharmacy. We'll see what happens with this. So it should turbocharge a lot of things in a good way, I would expect.
Question. This actually leads to my next kind of column is because healthcare is the data is so sensitive, right? Like, how are you able, or I'm not saying you specifically, but
Yeah.
how would you assume or think about building these systems without creating like a massive privacy risk? I don't see how that's really possible.
Oh, it's totally possible, 100%. There's all the HIPAA laws that are in place for the specific
Okay.
reason. So actually, when I started Huzi, one of the first conversations I was having is with a large hospital, buddy,
Okay.
and a large. I don't want to name any names, but they provide a lot of continuing education for a lot of the largest medical institutions in the world, actually, and especially in this country. And I was in talks with them, and I was actually using AI, and we were actually digesting all of their training transcripts from all their videos that they have produced to give doctors. And I did find, inaccuracies and problems, and they were listing the wrong genomes in this training and different things. They actually made some major changes as a result of it. But back to HIPAA and privacy, you can absolutely do that. You can run models, locally on servers now that are protected. So
Okay.
you're not actually using
That's good.
APIs, from OpenAI or something like that. So yeah, there's lots of ways that they can do that in a good way. Now I will say, this is a crazy world with offense and defense being played with cyber hackers, and we saw just a few weeks ago the first known documented full AI autonomous hack by a foreign adversary, China,
Yep.
in very sensitive parts of our infrastructure. So that is going to happen. But no, Mo, actually, you can actually design an AI system fully, fenced, let's just say, run locally on a server. It's protected and all that stuff. So you don't have to use like OpenAI's API to do these sorts of things.
Cool. Thank you for clearing that up. I'm sure that makes us all that are listening a little bit more at ease. It was one of my concerns, definitely. I did have a interesting question, maybe a little bit more sensitive. We know that AI can perpetuate bias, right? So in healthcare, that's literally life or death. How do you see the landscape in the next 2, 20, 40 years? Like, can you still, do you still have to have, I know we've discussed this slightly, but do we still have to have a human element to be able to negate this?
So the bias in an AI system comes from the training data, and the training data comes from the decisions of people. Okay.
Which are fallible and
Which are fallible or maybe have an agenda, right?
Yeah.
In some
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So I just following the food chain here. So the AI
Yeah.
itself doesn't have bias.
Okay.
The
Got it.
training data may, and the training data is put there by people. So we need to make sure that we're either pointing the fingers or looking to give applause or credit to people, not the AI in this for this the answer to your question here, buddy. So inherently, AI has training data, it has pre-training, it has post-training, it has weights, and it's basically a system that's put together by people. Now, the AI does have emergent behaviors that the creators of AI are still trying to figure out what this means. Is this a bug or a feature of what we just built? They're not sure exactly. They know exactly how a neural network works. They know exactly how the system builds, but the outputs sometimes the generations, let's say, as a result of inference, talking to it, essentially giving it input and then giving it a generation. There are emergent properties that people are not quite sure if it is a bug or a feature of the systems, which I think is fascinating. So those biases are not natural to the AI. They're a product of the post pre training data and then the weights and stuff like that. That how the AI system is set up.
Got it. AI is neither good or bad.
It isn't. It isn't. And that's a funny thing that people do is that we anthropomorphize it. I talked a little bit about, I don't know if it's on this podcast or not, how companies and people are really good at finding ways to offload responsibilities for things. So, or distract from true responsibility. So, an example, we all know what a carbon footprint is.
Right.
That is a thing that was developed by BP to try and distract from what they were doing to the world and these ecological systems and rainforests and whatnot. And it was a master class in deflection. And they got people to start arguing with each other about our individual carbon footprints while they're doing this thing over here in the dark, right? And so I just want to also remind ourselves that AI is not a product of AI. If we talk about the damage of AI, the corporations, if you want to blame somebody, blame the corporations doing it, building the server
Yep.
farms that are they're
Yep.
using the water, the electricity, or whatever. It's not AI doing it. So we have to don't be fooled by having your anger or frustration be pointed at something that didn't develop itself.
Amen to that. It's like blaming a calculator for giving you the wrong number that you
Yes.
didn't want.
My little fat fingers is the wrong button at the beginning. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
It's just something that just be mindful of, these messages. They're trying to hijack your emotions and it's not for the reasons that you'd think.
Yeah. Awesome. Are you ready for the rapid fire section?
Hit me, buddy. Let's do
Sweet. What do you think becomes possible in healthcare in the next 10 years? That seems impossible today.
it. I can't look that far out, and nor do I think I'm qualified to answer that with any sort of honesty. I'll tell you my hopes.
Let's say that your hopes.
Yeah, my hopes is that we have a system that costs 10 times less. My hopes is that we have a system that's 100 times more personalized. My hopes is that it's 10 times more convenient. My hopes is that doctors and the system are the top quartile, the top 10% that are the heartfelt led expert ones are the ones that are in charge of the AI systems. They're the ones that are in charge of the processes, and it's not the insurance companies, and it's certainly not, big tech in that way. So that's my hope for the future, and I think that there's a path to that. I don't think that's wildly, naive to say this, but I think that that's something. I also think that there's a lot of cures on the horizons, and I find that fascinating. I'm really hopeful about extending the quality of life for people. I'm hopeful in finding ways that we just stamp things out that have plagued, our human genetics for a long time, and we find ways to grow older gracefully longer. And I think that's possible in the next 10 years.
I sure hope so. That would be fantastic. So people that wear smartwatches, Whoop bands, they can monitor, specific stats, sleep, activity, heart rate. Do you think that would be, let's say in the future or even now, that would be useful data to an AI doctor or a doctor that is leveraging AI?
I really do. I really do. Because again, AI systems can give you the best answer when it has the most context. And so if it has these micro trends, whether it's your biometrics, your heart rhythms, your blood pressure, your breath rate, per hour or per minute, your sleep health. Those things can help paint a much more clear picture, a much more comprehensive picture, a much more high fidelity picture of something that's happened that seems kind of mysterious. Like I have this brain fog, I just don't wake up in the morning, but if I were to help to like really churn through all this micro data, then yes, I do think that the diagnosis could be much more comprehensive and honest. Yeah.
Okay, so next rapid fire question, I think that would be in line with this is people that are in rural areas or perhaps they don't have access to healthcare or the expediency of healthcare, but they have data. Do you think that this would be, I'm not saying as a replacement, but it could potentially create new opportunity for them? So whereas before there's no hope.
Yeah, I do. And so in order to know what's wrong with you, you have to be screened in some way.
Yes.
You have to take the biometrics. You have to be screened in some way, your blood pressure and your height and your weight, your measurement, and your pulse. Those things are your oxygen levels. Even taking a photo of your eye and having your eye retinal scan can show a lot of what's happening with your liver and kidney and things internally in your heart. So there are things that somebody could just administer at home in a really clear way, like what's happening with Rapirio, that could absolutely transform people, either lower income, hard to get there, transport, it's not easily accessible, or just the clinics around are too full. And you got to wait on a waiting list for 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that for sure.
Have you found like a really cool AI health tool that you've used? Or do you use Huzi as a way to be able to, like for instance, when you did all that research for your wife, what did you use?
Huzi.
How were you able to collect all that? Huzi.
Yeah. So, I used Huzi. We did online searches together, found these different research papers, found these publications. And I want people to really clearly hear me say this, that that's so far above my pay grade to look at these research papers and understand the medical technician, the technical terms and whatnot. So being able to like digest all that stuff and then convert it into language that I could understand, I could double check, that was in a framework that I could then find the definitions. I could find links to like where the definition came from. I was just able to educate myself so fast using the system. So it really, you need to have web capability. You need to have the most powerful models. You need to have RAGs so you can adjust PDFs, documents, images, or whatnot so the AI can read it. And then you need to have some like internal like curiosity to keep digging through it. If you have those things, man, you can learn anything and get through anything. And that's exactly what Huzi had for me. That's not meant to be a plug, by the way, man. It's truthful. I really did. I really feel like I used the AI system that I built to impact the mother of my children in a positive way, which I think is just so like, it's inspiring to me to keep doing this, to be honest.
Plug or not, it was an incredibly useful tool, and it was the best at your disposal at the time. And as you keep iterating the product, I'm assuming that it's going to keep getting better and better. We started off this conversation asking about this gap between medicine today and medicine of tomorrow, and what does the healthcare system kind of look like. And after talking to you today and you sharing these amazing stories, it's clear that it isn't just about technology. There is this growing need to make the system better for us humans. It's about access. It's about asking the right questions. It's about knowing how to research and using the tech at your disposal that you just did. And I feel like the biggest takeaway for me is don't wait for this future to be handed to you. Don't wait. Use the tools that you have at your disposal to be able to leverage, make things better, easier, whatever. That's the whole premise and purpose of technology, is to make things better, to make our lives better, and not to alienate those that speak about it. Technology is this, social media is this. It's just, man, it's whatever stigma that you attach is what it's going to become. But if you use it for good, use it for the thing, I think that's what's most important.
Before we wrap up, can we talk, like, I want to add one more thing in here. We talk about the part of the process at the doctor. Ahead of that, we're talking about health and wellness and that kind of stuff too. Yep. Ahead of that, I use AI and it helps me with my diet, my sleep health, my exercise routine, back injury, sports recovery, training regimen for events I want to do, research of just fun new ways to move my body. And I have just stuck in a rut and you want to like loosen that rut up a little bit, and you could, collaborate with your AI based on your own, your height, weight, your age, what you have access to. You have a dumbbell, you got rocks, do you have access to a gym or Pilates? and you can really transform your health before you even need a medical doctor with AI. Like I'm talking about kind of preventative sort of things here. You know, if you want to take a picture of the food on your plate and give it to Huzi and say, you know, count the calories here and keep track of your calories that way, you can do that. You know, really, if you have that curiosity about what you're putting in your body, you go to the store, take pictures of the label, and help sort out like what's in the ingredients in the food that you're eating that's, you know, packaged in these stores. You know, that's all this. You have Crohn's disease, you know, whatever these things that you're plagued with, you can now not have to wait to go, you know, months to go talk to a doctor or sit there and then get, you know, 15 minutes of somebody's time. You can really get to the heart and educate yourself on whatever is like affecting you in that way. Mental health, depression, like all of these things, love, relationships, all the things that affect your health, stress. These are all things that you can work with an AI system, even Huzi or ChatGPT or whatever, to figure out a better plan for yourself, to research, you know, care for yourself, to come up with new ideas for yourself, to uncover new ways of viewing the way you're treating yourself and treat yourself a little bit better. So yeah, man, like lean all the way into that side of it too, not just wait for the doctor.
I appreciate you sending that. Thank you so much. I think that the standard of care is definitely shifting beneath our feet for sure. And I really appreciate you showing us what's kind of happening behind the curtain, you know, just as a man that is curious and is doing his absolute best in these times for yourself, for your family, for your community. I think it's fantastic. And now potentially everybody that's listening. So I'm really grateful for giving us your time.
Oh man, get with a doctor that you respect and that you trust, and then trust yourself to know what to do with that information. And yeah, man, I'm honored to be part of these conversations, Mel. Good to see you again.
You too, man. Have a great day. See you next time.